My name's Trisha, and today we are going to be learning some transfer drawing techniques. It's very helpful for artists to be able to transfer drawings they've already made or outlines of images that they would like to use in their artwork. It's actually a very common practice of artists nowadays. So I will go ahead and show you some materials that you'll need. It'll be good to have some tracing paper. It really doesn't matter what brand you get. I just usually go for the cheapest. Tracing paper will not be your finished product, so as long as it gets the job done, that's all that matters. I would use a ruler. You'll definitely want some type of pencil because you'll be transferring the lead later on. We have painter's tape here, which you'll see me use later. And then whatever image you would like to transfer. So let's go ahead and get started. Start by putting my tracing paper over top, and I'm just using an old sheet that I have. I'm going to line it up the way I want it. I'm going to go ahead and tape it on the edges. I might want to tape this one a little bit more out of the way. So now I can go ahead and outline the major shapes. And not only that, I'll be outlining main shadows and highlights as well. So I'd use the tape just to hold it in place, but now that I'm entirely done with what I'm going to draw, I can go ahead and remove it. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over because this is the image I would like to transfer, and I don't want my image to be backwards, so I'm going to go ahead and go on the back of that image so I see my lines here. And I'm going to carefully and precisely go over my lines, but pushing down hard, getting a lot of lead onto that line. Assuming this is all that I want to transfer of my image, I'm going to go ahead and begin the transfer process. So this is my back side that I just put down the lead on. So I'm going to flip it back over. I'm going to put it onto my paper that I'll be using for my artwork. Go ahead and tape this on here so it stays in place. And then I can use a variety of supplies, whether or not I want to go over this with a pencil again or a pen, or I can kind of just use like the back of a spoon or just the lid of this just to press it down. All we need to do is push that lead onto the paper underneath. Let's see. You see how it transferred that onto there? A different but very similar technique we'll be using is instead of using the tracing paper, we're just going to utilize this sketch. Or oftentimes what I'll do is I'll do a nice drawing and then I'll make copies of it, and then I'll utilize the copy in this step to transfer onto my paper and then make multiple paintings of the same image. So what I'm going to do is going to go ahead and tape this up on the window. I have the image itself facing out. So what I'm basically doing is using this as a light table. I'm going to want to carefully trace the image as I did before with the tracing paper. I'll lay this down onto the paper I'll be using for my final project. Then I'll go ahead and press it down to transfer that image. So this one I didn't press down very hard on the back side of the image. So you only got a very light transfer, but that's all that I need because I can go back and do a darker line over it if that's what I wanted. But it's good enough that I can see the image and I don't have to redraw that same image over and over. Now I'm going to show you the grid transfer method. You can either, if you have a printed copy of an image, like a photo, like this, which I've often done, I would make a black and white copy of this image and then draw the grid onto here. Or you can, on your phone, you can download an artist grid app that will take an image in your phone and put the grid lines there for you. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a grid over this. I'm going to choose to do 1 inch intervals for this one, so I'll do 1 inch marks on the top and then 1 inch marks from the bottom. But depending on whatever suits your needs better and will make it easier for you to transfer, you can use 1/2 inch, 2 inches, as long as it's consistent. You don't want there to be 1 inch here and then a 1/2 inch here and then 3/4 of an inch here. You want it to be uniform. As for your side rows as well, you'll want those also to be whatever unit of measure you used here. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect the lines. So I'm going to go ahead, hold this down and trace it nicely. And then we'll go ahead and measure along the sides, so then that way we have a grid. I have my grid drawn here, and now I'm going to draw my grid on the paper I'll be using. I'm going to be doing a painting on canvas. I will be drawing this step directly onto the canvas. If I'm going to be using some other paper type of medium, especially if I'm using watercolor, I'd like to draw out the image and all my grid on another sheet of paper and then transfer that using the transfer methods we did before. I'm going to go ahead and draw this grid, and instead of using 1 inch intervals, I'm going to be using 2 inch intervals. As long as I keep it consistent, I can scale up. I went ahead and drew my grid lines. I think the best way to utilize this method is if, again, you have one of those artist grid apps where it directly takes the image and puts it into grid format, and then all you need to do is draw your grid onto either your canvas or a sheet of paper. So now what this does is that it makes it easier for me to redraw my image. So that way I'm not having to worry so much about proportions, getting it perfect. I can just really simplify it in my mind. So for this top square here, I'm going to go ahead and use this square here. So all I see in this square is this little portion here and this little top portion of the S. So that'll be really easy to do, because all I have to think about right now is just doing this little curve and then do the top of the S. I'm being mindful of where these points are touching within the square and its proportion within the square. So on this image, I'm not doing an arc like this where it takes up like most of the space. Just doing a smaller one in the corner that starts about halfway here and ends about 1/3 into here. So then, now that I'm done with that step, I can go ahead and do the next line. So now I'll just connect this line down into this crevice here and then work on the edges of those letters. So now I have the basis for my image. Thank you for your time. Please like and subscribe. And also, if there's anything that you want to see next time in my videos that you would like me to teach you, or if you have any questions about today's lesson, please comment down below and I will respond to every comment. Thank you. Take care.